This training video will be in conjunction with document NAV_005 Customer Aging Reports. Please make sure to have this printed out and on hand while we go through this video. We'll be covering 8 lessons in this video. I'll bring those up right here. We'll be going over running a customer due date forecast for open items, a customer due date analysis, This training video will be in conjunction with document NAV_005 Customer Aging Reports. Please make sure to have this printed out and on hand while we go through this video. I'll be covering 8 lessons in this video. We'll go over the open items customer due date forecast report, the customer due date analysis for open items report, and within this there are 3 outputs that I will go over: the graphical report output, the classic drill down report output, and the object list output. Following that, we will go over how to run a customer line item report, and then we'll go over the customer open item report by balance of overdue items, and then finally we'll go over the customer open item report. So to get started, we will click on the SAP logon icon and log in. Double click on Dev, enter in our user ID, password. Okay, so this first lesson will be running a customer due date forecast for open items, and this will just be the procedure on how to open this and run this report, and this begins on page 6. So to start, we'll enter the transaction into the command field, and the transaction code is S_ALR_870-12175, and then we'll hit enter. And here we can see we have the customer selection area, the selection using search help area, line item selection, further selections, and output control. Up here we can enter in a customer account and company code. For this we'll just enter in company code 1000 for Blessing Marine Services. Down here we can see that we can search by a variety of criteria, but we won't worry about this. Following that, we have the open items at key date, and we'll set this as today's date. Further down, we'll just click normal documents. We won't worry about noted items. And then finally down here, we can change these 2 dates in the output control area to change different days that we'd like to view information for the days due. So I'll go ahead and change this for the first column from 8 to 30. This will show items due within 30 days in the first column. And then in column 2, I'll change that to 60, so that we'll see the items due within 60 days in the second column. And I'll go ahead and execute this report. And this is the open items customer due date forecast report. And here we can see is that 30 and 60 that I just entered. And then we also have our totals. In addition, we also have the customer numbers and the actual name of the customers right next to them. And we can scroll down to look at all of these different customers here. See that customer 16, Asphalt Fuel Supply, has $999 due in 30 days or less. And that is the customer due date forecast for open items report. And there is homework on page 10 regarding this report. So I'll wait a moment before moving on to the next lesson. So now would be a good time to take notes or pause the video. Okay, so this next report I'm going to run is the customer due date analysis for open items. And to move to this report, I'll enter in \n before entering in the transaction code. This transaction code is S_ALR_87012-168, and I'll hit enter. And here we can see similar information. We have the customer count section where we can enter in a singular value, a range of values, or enter in multiple values using the multiple selection button. And we can do the same thing with company code. In addition, we can enter in the date, and then here are the 3 different output types at the bottom. And to start, we'll run a report using the graphical report output. And this lesson will start on page 13. And for this report, I'll run this for customer account 16 and company code 1000. And I'll go ahead and execute this. And let me go back, and we'll run this just for all of company code 1000 as opposed to customer 16. So just company code 1000, graphical report output for the day's date, and execute. Okay, and here we can see the intervals at the bottom here for all of the net due, not due, and open items. And over here we have the navigation area. From here we can double click through each of these types to look at the open items regarding each type. So if we double click on company code, we can see that since I just put in 1000, that's the only company code that comes up. You can double click on posting key to look at invoices, other receivables, payment differences, etc. Special general ledgers, which there is only one. Business area, which we won't worry about. And then finally we have customer, and we can look at all of these different customers that we have in the system. And to navigate further, we can even double click on a particular customer and drill down into that a little bit further. I'll bring this over a little bit. And we can look at customer 16, we can look at their intervals for what's due, what's not due, and open items. And in addition, we can also scroll through these different customers using these arrow buttons. And to remove this, all we need to do is double click on the customer to bring us back to where we were previously. And then we can go to customer, document type, and all of these different navigation tools again. So what I did was just show you one of the 3 outputs for this report, and there's homework on page 15 regarding this output. And I'll wait a moment before moving on to the next lesson. Okay, so this next output I'll show you begins on page 16, and this is the classic drill down report. And this will go over the second of the 3 outputs for the customer due date analysis report. And so I'll go back to our original screen here in transaction code SALR 870-12168. And transaction codes will always be down here at the bottom in case you were wondering. And we'll enter in the same information. We're just going to use company code 1000, the day's date, and we'll change this to the classic drill down report. And I'll execute this. Here we can see a similar looking report. You can do very similar things with this output as well. We can see all the intervals and the due, not due, and open items again. The difference is the way that you can navigate in this output. And you can navigate by, say, document type. And there's a few different document types here. But instead of scrolling down, it's an easier way of finding different document types. We can click on this magnifying glass to bring up all of the list of all of the different document types so that we can find them easier. And in addition, we can also do this for customer as well. So we see that we can scroll down through all of these different customers but that can take a while, especially if there's a lot of customers, which there are. So we can just click on this magnifying glass and then scroll through the list of all the different customers. And so this is the classic drill down output for this customer report. And for this lesson, there's homework on page 18, and I'll wait a moment before moving on to the next lesson. Alright, so for lesson number 5, we'll go over the third of the 3 outputs for the customer due date analysis. And this begins on page 19. So we'll go back and we'll click on the object list and run the report with all of the same information once again. And here we can see everything is laid out for us. You can see all these different customers, and we can move these columns around if we would like in any way that you would like, depending on how you would like to view the report. So again, this is just on page 19. It's just the third of the 3 outputs, and all 3 of these display the same information, just in different ways. And that is lesson number 5, so I'll wait before moving on to lesson number 6, where I'll talk about the customer line item report. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to a different transaction, so I'll enter in \n, and we'll be running the customer line item report, which T code is FBL5N. Here we see a variety of information. In fields, we can choose a work list. We can choose from values, either 1, a range, or many. And we can do the same thing with company code. So for company code, we'll enter in 1000 for Blessing Marine Services. And for customers, I'll enter in a range from customer 16 to customer 20. And we'll run this for all open items from today's date. And these will just be normal items. We won't worry about any of these parked noted vendor items or special GL transactions. And down here we can choose a specific layout for the report. And we have one specifically for customer aging information, which is BMS1. But to change the layout, if you'd like, just click on this match code button, which is this right here, to bring up the list of all the different layouts. And you can click on one of them and click the green check mark to bring it into the field. So we'll leave this layout as \BMS1, company code 1000, and values for the customer 16 to 20. And I'll go ahead and execute this. And here we can see is a variety of information. We can see the customer number is up here at the top, the company code, and the name and city of the customer. And we can see, since I did the range of 16 through 20, that we begin with customer 16, we move through 17, and as I scroll down, see customer 19, customer 20, and that is it in the report. And then we have our totals down here at the bottom for that range of customers. In addition, we can also drill down, which means to look at the actual documents for each of these different line items. So if we're wondering about this $999 right here, we can click anywhere on this line item, to bring us into that original document. So I'll double click. Here we can see is that original document for that $999 for customer 16. You can also look at other information like payment terms and baseline date, and etc. And so that is how to execute the customer line item report and drill down into a document. There's homework on page 22 regarding this, and I'll wait a moment before moving on to the next transaction. So this next lesson, we will go over the customer open item report by balance of overdue items. And this begins on page 23. So to open this report, this will be another \n before we enter in the T code, and this will be S_ALR _870 12178. And here we have that same information up at the top, the customer and company code. So for the customer, we'll run this for 16, which is the asphalt fuel supply. And then we have company code, which will be 1000. And we have special search area right here, reporting time frame, so we could put in the different fiscal years that we'd like to run this for. We have this familiar open items field right here, which we'll leave as today's date. And then we have a whole variety of further selections of fields that we can enter in to change the output of this report. Now if we scroll down, we can change the output of the report additionally in this due date sorted list right here. And this allows you to choose what intervals to display the balances, similar to what we had done in the very first report. And I'll show you this in a second, but right now we can see that we have nothing in this first field. Then we have 20, 40, 80, and 100. And those will be intervals that we'll see in the report. So I'll scroll back up and then execute this report. So as we scroll down, these are the intervals that I was just talking about here. We can see the overdue items within these different intervals, so that are currently due, that are due from days 1 through 20, 21 through 40, 41 through 80, etc. And we can see the totals down here as we scroll down. And so that's how to execute the customer open item analysis for overdue items. Again, this was transaction S_ALR _8701 2178. So we're on page 25 of the document, and I'll pause a moment before moving on to the final lesson. Okay, so for this final lesson, lesson number 8, I will open up the customer open item report. And this will begin on page 26 of the document. And the transaction for the customer open item report is S_ALR _8701 2174. And this will be just a report for the list of all customer open items. And we'll enter in company code 1000 and 1000, and we'll set this for the range of customers from 16 through 20. And that's all of the information that we'll be putting in. In addition, we can set the layout down here to something that we would like, but we'll leave that field empty for now. And I'll go ahead and execute this report. Okay, and so here we can see customer 16, the asphalt fuel supply, and we can see a whole variety of information here for these customers 16 through 20 as we scroll down. And so again, this began on page 26, the customer open item report. And so all of these reports that I had just shown all relate to customer aging reports and all have very similar information The differences are the outputs and the ways in which you can search for the information and display the information. So this concludes the customer balances reporting video. If there are any questions, please email us at info@sap-bm